Why US statement on waiving vaccine patents is important in fight against COVID-19. Why is there a demand to do away with vaccine patents, and what is the importance of the statement by the Biden administration that would support relaxing intellectual property rights of vaccines? The Biden administration on Wednesday said it would support waiving patient patents on COVID-19 vaccines. The statement has important implications because doing away with intellectual property rights will pave way for cheaper versions of the vaccine to enter the market and also scale up production. While signaling its intention to do away with patents, US Trade Representative Catherine Tai in a statement said, "The administration believes strongly in intellectual property protections, but in service of ending this pandemic, supports the waiver of those protections for COVID-19 vaccines. The administration aims is to get as many safe and effective vaccines to do as many people as possible." The statement also mentioned that in view of the global health crisis now, extraordinary circumstances of the COVID-19 call for extraordinary measures. India has been leading a push from lower and middle income countries at the World Trade Organization to do away patents on vaccine against COVID. The demand had also been raised by human rights bodies and global advocacy groups. However, the appeals to do away with intellectual property rights have been unsuccessful so far in the face of lobbying by powerful pharmaceutical companies. So why is there a demand to do away with vaccine patents, and what is the importance of the statement by the Biden administration that would support relaxing intellectual property rights of vaccines? We explain. Why is the demand to waive patents on COVID vaccines important? At present, only drug companies which own patents are authorized to manufacture COVID vaccines. A lifting of patents will allow the recipes to be shared and there will no longer be an embargo. Basically, once the formula is shared, any company which possesses the required technology and infrastructure can produce vaccines. This will lead to cheaper and more generic versions of COVID vaccines. It would also mean two things. Vaccines will be more affordable, and this will be a big step in overcoming vaccine shortage. At a time when many people across India are struggling to get vaccines and shortages are being reported from many states, there is unanimous agreement on the fact that there is a need to scale up production. An important talking point in recent times has been the need to have more equitable distribution of the vaccine doses available. For instance, the United States have been reportedly sitting on tens of millions of AstraZeneca vaccines, even when Pfizer and Moderna are estimated to deliver 400 million doses by the end of May and 600 million by the end of July. Combined with the 20 million doses Johnson & Johnson is also expected to deliver this month, the United States may have an excess of over 80 million doses. Inequitable distribution of vaccines has opened up glaring gap between developing and wealthier countries now. While countries where vaccine orders ran into billions of doses have already given the shot to a considerable percentage of their population and are getting ready to welcome a semblance of normalcy back into their lives, poorer nations that continue to face shortages have been overburdened healthcare systems and hundreds dying daily. But this is against the interests of the world at large. Vaccine experts and human rights groups including Medicine Sans Frontiers and Amnesty International have warned the longer COVID circulates in developing nations, there is a greater chance of more vaccine-resistant deadly mutations of the virus emerging. An Oxfam International report published in March this year states that during a survey of 77 epidemiologists from 28 countries carried out by the People's Vaccine Alliance, two-thirds warned that mutations could render current vaccines ineffective in a year or less. Unless we vaccinate the world, we leave the playing field open to more and more mutations. which could churn out variants that could evade our current vaccines and require booster shots to deal with them. We all have a self interest in ensuring that everyone around the world, no matter where they live, have access to COVID 19 vaccines. The report further stated nearly three-quarters of those surveyed, who include epidemiologists, virologists, and infectious diseases specialists from institutions including Johns Hopkins, Yale, Imperial College, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Cambridge University of Edinburgh, and the University of Cape Town, said that open sharing of technology and intellectual property could increase global vaccine coverage. Who is demanding the patents on COVID 19 vaccines be lifted? In October last year, India and South Africa submitted a proposal to WTO to suspend vaccine patents for the duration of the pandemic and share the formula for jabs prepared by AstraZeneca and Pfizer. The proposal argued this would make vaccines more affordable and allow poorer countries to acquire more doses easily. The proposal was supported by more than 100 countries, mostly lower and middle income nations, and strongly opposed by some of the world's largest economies including European Union and the United States. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus in March called for the vaccine patent rights to be waived until the end of the pandemic, stating that these unprecedented times warrant the move. Countries with their own vaccine capacity should start waiving intellectual property rights as provided in special emergency provisions from the WTO, Tedros said in a press briefing. In April, WHO in one of its online newsroom posts stated that it wants to facilitate the establishment of technology transfer hubs of producing mRNA vaccine. It is essential that technologies used is either free of intellectual property constraints in LMIC's low and middle income countries, or that such rights are made available to the technology hub and the future recipients of the technology through non-exclusive licenses to produce, export and distribute the COVID-19 vaccines in LMICs, including through the COVAX facility. The WHO post stated, however, the open call issued by WHO so far received very little expression of interest from the owners of vaccine technology and intellectual property rights. Human rights bodies and advocacy groups have also been at the forefront of the demand to waive patents and make vaccines more readily available to end the pandemic. For instance, in Australia, more than 700 medical officials and academics signed a letter supported by Medicines Sans Frontier and the Public Health Association of Australia calling on the federal government to throw its support behind the intellectual property waiver proposal. There's more to the story. Biosafe Pharma, a small Canadian drug manufacturer, reached out to Johnson & Johnson seeking permission to produce COVID vaccine. Boyles, which has capacity of producing 20 million doses per year, wanted to produce the vaccine on its own through a compulsory license under Canada's Access to Medicines regime, a legislation under which there is an emergency provision the federal government to waive patent rights. However, Johnson & Johnson wrote back it is not interested. It wanted the vaccine doses to be produced by 11 companies that it had entered into an agreement with. Who are opposing the lifting of patents on COVID vaccines and why? The issue of waiving intellectual property rights is one of conflict between human rights and commercial interests of powerful pharmaceutical companies. Drug manufacturers and governments in the US, UK, Europe have been strongly opposing the patent waiver. This despite the fact that WTO Tedros had said that lifting patents do not mean the innovators will not get anything. They stand to get royalty for the products they manufacture. The pharmaceutical industry have been arguing that innovation as well as the vaccine quality and safety depend on maintaining exclusive intellectual property rights. They have been further arguing that intellectual property rights are important because of the money and effort that goes into research and development. They feel lifting of patents would be a huge deterrent to their investing heavily on vaccine development during pandemics in the future. They have also been pointing out that lifting of patents would be compromise and of control, safety and quality standards for vaccine manufacturing. They argued that the move would disintensify pharmaceutical companies and allow countries such as Russia and China to exploit the mRNA technology to their advantage. Many of these drug companies, which enjoy a monopoly on individual COVID vaccines worth billions of dollars in annual sales, have been lobbying the Biden administration not to do away with the intellectual property rights. In a recent letter to President Joe Biden, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, which, while opposing the lifting patents on vaccines, eliminating those protections would undermine the global response to the pandemic, including ongoing efforts to tackle new variants, create confusion that could potentially undermine public confidence in vaccine safety, and create a barrier to information sharing. Most importantly, eliminating protections would not speed up production. Moderna said in February that its vaccine is expected to bring 18.5 billion for the company this year. Pfizer has stated the conservative estimate suggests that it would gain 15 billion from sales. Faced with the possibility of losing out of their profit margins and the monopoly, drug companies have been lobbying the US administration to block India's push for patent waiver at the WTO. The US Chamber of Commerce of Business Roundtable and the International Intellectual Property Alliance, all of which receive money from drug companies, had reportedly dispatched lobbyists to oppose the move. However, the announcement does not mean that patent rules will be waived right away. The decision has to be taken by the members of the WTO. White House Chief Staff Ron Kane has acknowledged the intellectual property rights are a part of the problem of vaccine shortage that the world is facing today. If patents are ultimately waived, it will definitely be a shot in the arm to increase the scale and speed of vaccine rollout across the world. For India, which has the bulk of the vaccine doses it producing being taken up by foreign countries which could pay more for the doses, this move can help scale up production to meet the demand, besides making the vaccines more affordable for everyone. Had the proposal been accepted at the WTO last year, it could have played a crucial role in preventing vaccine shortage in India and preventing the number of daily deaths in the country witnessing now. However, the crisis is far from over. Dr. K.V. Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister, stating on Wednesday that the third wave of the pandemic is inevitable. Once the number of cases and deaths plateau, addressing shortages and making more affordable vaccines readily accessible could be the best way to prepare for the surge once again. Thank you.